has been involved with Tata in many different ways for about 10 years and also was heading Tata previously. So it's an interesting, you all talk about interdisciplinary work. Here is somebody who manifests that, right? So the lot of attention that he brings to details in issues relating to rural development, right? And his understanding of rural development, I'm not going to preempt anything by saying, but his understanding of rural development has, very clear stamps of his own thinking. So he brings in issues of epistemology, some philosophical issues, but a lot more emphasis on the pragmatics of it, right? The local institution building. So we've had lots of conversations in between, and I'm sure through today's class and perhaps more than that, you will start a conversation.
Thank you. So it's going to be a long talk. So you'll forgive me for it. So I'm going to sit and give this whatever fireside chat or even public. So this is really an exploration on for example, Tata and I did an idea together. There are a lot of technological institutions. So and what is the agenda that we have? And what is the contour of the agenda? Who are the players? And what is, for example, what is the role of the state, society, market, and so on, and culture? And also, what is the meaning of science and technology, especially for development methods? Right? So, is it different, or was it ever, was the suitable science and technology for development ever enunciated? Have other people passed through this phase? And so on. So it is really a broader exploration development, which is an agenda for all of you, especially the group. I think it is important, and I would really welcome any comments and so on. So this is a long class, and so you don't need to see 70 there, but a lot of it are really pictures. So we need to go through. So stop me if there are any questions, and if there are any comments which are urgent, and discuss it or something not clear. Should I start? Okay. So the first thing, so the talk is in 5 parts. The first part is the question of development. How do I measure it, and what are the metrics? And for an engineer technologist, what would be suitable metrics, right? And have we been satisfying? Has our engineering addressing those questions? So that's part 1. Part 2 is I'm going to start looking at science, engineering, and society, and trying to explode it into its various components, okay, and show what should engineering be and how maybe it is failing, and maybe that it requires that the university actually train our engineers better to address that problem. Okay, so that's part 2. Part 3, that once I've set up this perspective, part 3 is to actually look at drinking water, a concrete sector from this perspective. What does it look like? What are its features and so on. So when you go out as development professionals, I am then motivated. Perhaps you should do such an analysis, right, of your particular sector. Okay? Then, so I'm going to talk about what is the basic data, what sort of social and technical variables you should be looking at and analyzing, right? And how do you design such a framework? And finally, parts 4 and 5 are some of the typologies that you will encounter. Right, and then finally a philosophical summary. Okay, so what have we done today? Okay, so let's start. So essentially, it is really the structure and method of science and technology and how is it related to society. And my argument of in India, for example, that the university is a very important role, primarily because it is the civil society which was there in other places they are now developed. Okay, so I think that the role of the university is very central because it has the capability and it has the independence of conduct the scientific method. Okay, so maybe in Europe or maybe in other development, it did not have that importance. But for us, I think it is very central that it is the only agency which is there which can comprehend what all is going on. Okay, so comprehension, that the university as the only place right now which can comprehend what is going on in that interdisciplinary framework. Okay, so that is the issue. So let's see how we measure development. for a society, of course, these are some of the metrics of development, better nutrition. So these are the outcomes that we would like to see. Better nutrition for all, better productivity in agriculture, sadak binti pani, cheaper buses and bridges, right? Better public transport, better civil system, cheaper food, better cars, and even some cultural objectives like wider or more, there should be more song and dance in organizations than their loudspeakers. Right? More authors, better books, better sports, right? And maybe some strategic needs like indigenous helicopters and submarines, and overall a more equal society and community profit. Right? These are what we would say are good social outcomes. Correct? Right? So, by the way, please stop me if you have any comment or question. Right? But as an
how can you take development of indigenous different as societal outcome?
There, I'm seeing that these are different people. You ask one person, they will say cheaper Ganesh, cheaper.
But that is actually something which is highlighting the mental psyche of the society.
Correct. I'm just saying that these are some of the answers that you will get. Okay, so after all, we are not just development is not the agenda of us few. It is the agenda of many of rulers, and they don't want to get attacked. They don't want attack and defense, and it has been an important part of everybody's history. Okay, so I think that these are the answers that you will get. Right. So how do you measure engineering outcomes? So these are some of the engineering. So number of scientific instruments in schools, number of buses per 1,000 people, liters of water per day, and number of factories, manufacturing jobs, like the road, and so on, and units of electricity. These are all, given the broader social outcomes for an engineer, these will be reasonable social outcomes. Right? These are the measurements of a society, of the performance of engineering in that particular society. Okay. So, but if you take a walk outside, we barely 100. All these pictures are within 100 kilometers. You see that drinking water is still faced like this, and this, by the way, this is how food is made. Still, this is about 200 years old technology, the same materials, same way. And this is our ladies. These are our ladies. Oh, sorry. These are our ladies, and how they cook. Still 75% of our women are using chulas. Right? That's the NSSO data. So, right. So, I mean, if you analyze this further, you will see that there are very poor development indices. There are extensive governance and cultural institutions and thriving democracy, so-called. Yet there is asset poverty, social and asset inequality, and poor penetration infrastructure, malfunctioning markets and state, and a large informal and unstructured manufacturing base. Right? This is, if you go back, you will see that these are all, what contributed, for example, water supply scheme, and so on. Right? So you see it. So, economics, if you use the language economics, you use the language culture also, that's fine. We will eventually be using the language culture as well. But if you use the language economics, you will see that stagnant formal sector, poor R&D, dropping, absence of strategy, poor participation in industry, poor governance. These are all explanations coming from the language of economics. That these are all things that are going wrong. So if you look at metrics, right, actual data, what does the data say? Well, data reflects what the pictures I have drawn. So if you look at, so this is year-round drinking water availability. So how many people in per 1,000 have access, year-round access every day, they have access to drinking water, right? And this number, if you see, it's 858, rural, 896 urban, so that, so roughly 1 in 7 has to go somewhere else, right? And so by the way, if you look compared to 2008 and 2012, the numbers have actually dropped. Right? The number of people having access to drinking water has actually dropped in 4 years. This is very clear. And our Maharashtra is actually the second worst performing state, the big state. Now below us is only Jharkhand. Okay? So this is a clear indicator. So if you look at cooking energy, you get similar figures that this number of 75% of women using chulas is actually not budged in the last 50 years. Right? And if you look at steel consumption, if you want buses and bridges, then you must know how much steel you consume. Well, our consumption is 57, other Asian nations compare it with other numbers. Right? Okay, so for example, USA is, UK is 145, Netherlands 200. So it is also the amount of infrastructure that is needed and what has already been built. Right? So for example, UK is much lower, so we build building much less infrastructure now. All the tube rails and everything has been built. Correct? So, and if you look at what is the structure of the GDP, so here we have 17% of our from agriculture, only 25 from industry and 55 from services, right? And our per capita is so important. This is, I think, World Bank data. And employment, 50% is employed in agriculture, 22 in industry, and 26 in services. So if you divide the GDP by the employment, you roughly get how many rupees? Okay, so 30 paise, 17 upon 50 or 30. So 30 paise, for every 30 paise that agriculture wala gets, the services wala gets 2 rupees, right? And the industry wala gets, manufacturing, engineering wala gets 1 rupee. So if you look at 30 paise, 1 rupee, 2 rupees. That is the returns to engineering. Correct? Is that clear? So this is what we see is. So by the way, if you compare it with other countries, so you see that as the GDP increases, the role of the service sector should increase. Right? Yeah.
With regards to engineering, is the similar kind of engineering applied in these 3 sectors?
No, I'm just saying by this I'm using the whatever classification of GDP by sector. Okay, so obviously there is some engineering going on in agriculture, some service going on in marketing going on in industry.
Engineering will be very less in agriculture and
correct. So largely, so this is the standard classification used by in classifying data or in performance industry. Okay. So you see that we have in fact we are deindustrializing at a very low state of the GDP. Right? So before, at 6.8 thousand dollars, China has now 46, but we are already up there. So we are behaving as if we are a country which is like this, South Korea, which we are not. Then we still have lots of bridges and buses to be made, and yet we are. So in fact, if you look at top formal employers, you will see that they are all manufacturing does not count. So this is, this non-metal, this is daba batli wala, if you see here, the small absurd, they're hammering away. If you go to any rural bus stand, behind that are a lot of these workshops which are hammering things, making steel, patre ka trunks, tin ka trunks bana rahe hain. So these are our biggest employers, right? So you see what the condition is, right? So if you look at, formal versus informal, the same thing. 80% of people are employed in the formal sector and responsible 80% of the GDP, 80% employed in informal and 50% of GDP. Right? So there's in fact, there's India and Bharat, they are largely disconnected. And if you look at the top engineers in the country, or so-called top, this is placement at IIT Bombay in 2013. Right? So, so this number is the number of people placed in that sector, and this is the average salary. Okay, so you see here, for example, that the biggest, and by this label, so this is global company for global market. So II is Indian company for Indian market. Is that clear? Right? So is it clear? So Infosys, for example, is an Indian company for global market, and IG. Okay, so if you look at this data, what does it show you? Well, how many are engineers? Biggest, so 1/3. This is roughly to the 900. So roughly 1/3 of our graduates are actually doing engineering. 2/3 of our graduates are doing everything else. IT, consulting, finance, and so on. Right? And if you look at, make in India and make for India. Right? So what is make for India? It is GI and II. Correct? If you look at GI and II, full 88 students were, took up jobs in GI and II for Bombay. Okay? And if you look at each row, you will see that the engineers are less than 10. Right? If you look at this, so most of our MTech students are actually joining GE, General Electric, Airbus, and so on, which are essentially GG engineering. So these are all this is the top job for MTech students. Is that not true? Agree? Right? So we see that we are unable to place our students in engineering for Indian needs. That is a fact. This data shows it. So then the question is that why are our so anyway, by the way, if you look at this data, every row, the lowest paid are the engineers. But of course for IIT, right? For if you look at VNIT, the data will be different. In fact, VNIT is a much better engineering college than IIT. If you look at this data, it is more successful in placing, students into engineering. So the question really is, why are our graduates not doing engineering? Right? What is the difference and why are they not doing it? So just the conclusion is that our engineers are not doing, they are not where they are. But then you'll say, are there adequate opportunities? Right? Are there? And is our training suitable for those opportunities? Right? And has our training in fact changed? Right? So the question is, how can our engineers develop better value? So why will they do if there is a service job, in Deutsche Bank paying, 7 lakhs and something in Lafarge Cement pays 4 lakhs, then obviously you are all very rational people, you are going to take a 7 lakh job. So we must, as an institution, we must see that whether I can be so competent in cement manufacture that they find me valuable and that my salary becomes 7 lakhs. Then better cement will come out or cheaper cement will come out and different process will start, right? So it is clear that the training new processes and products and protocols in delivered value has to be found. Right? There will be better bridges, cheaper buses, and that requires newer liaison between the state, university, and private. Okay, that is I will argue for that. So, but the deeper thing is that a more fundamental understanding of what is science and what is technology, especially for a development like ours, and also identifying the role of the university in formalization of problems. Like you have drinking water. What is the problem about? Spelling it out very clearly. And this is what needs social science research. This is what needs economics. This is what needs, chemical engineering. This is what needs mathematics, and so on. Right? So these are the issues that are there. So that is the question of formalization. And secondly is the question of professionalization. So we must ultimately produce protocols. For example, I'll argue that what is the meaning of professionalization? Well, it means that I'm going to prepare agents who will deliver value. So I'm trained as a collector. For example, now we have the district collector. He is a professional. He or she has to deliver value. Correct? So first of all, we must discover how to deliver value, and then we must train agents who will deliver value. Right? So formalization and professionalization. So these are two very clear agenda for the okay. So what I've done is I've done part 1 and I'm now motivated part 2. Is that clear? So any questions? Good. Or bad? Okay. So let's now let's sort of unwind. So this is thread 1, and then I'm going to now develop thread 2. Okay, so what is science and what is technology? So we keep using science, science is good, bad, technology, engineering, and so on. Let us try to understand what is the meaning of science and how does it function, what is the meaning of engineering, and so on. So science really is about measurements. Number 1, then building a theory, and so that is first of all observation and documentation, formulation of laws and theories, and testing them out. Right? And of course, there is a fourth group which I will say that this has to be repeated till a satisfactory model or theory operates. Right? So it is you observe something, you build a theory, you try to explain things. If there is an error, you modify the theory. So it's a feedback loop in which there are. So by the way, these are all very important. Don't think that that means instruments. For example, if you want to find out how does the sun rise at what time of the year, you need a good clock. Right? So measuring instruments is very important for science. And in fact, a lot of scientists were very good engineers. Right? Galileo himself was a very all these Italian scientists or whatever, pre-Renaissance, was a very good engineer. Leonardo da Vinci was a very good engineer himself. Right? So you have to remember that. And all of it. So you'll see that there is a process involved in science. Right? So it is composed of 3 basic steps. Right? So for example, here is these are I think each. So what is this? This I have looked at a bore well. Okay, and I have plotted for the last 20 years, every month I took a reading of that border, the level. Right, and I say it was 16th August at 3 meters below ground. So I put, whatever, at 16th August, I put 3 meters below ground. Fine? But I have erased the years because after all, it should repeat every year. This seasonality, right? Is that clear? So now if I plot that data, what do you see? Well, it forms a very nice, this is my data. Right? And what would my science say? Well, why don't I draw a line through it, correct? And say that the rate of groundwater decreases at the rate of 1 meter per quarter. And that's a good model, right? Till there, well, what about the errors and so on? Then maybe the rainfall was different years, right? Maybe the plant cropping was different. So so this tells you that maybe my theory should now do better. Maybe it should account for agriculture as well, or maybe it should account for rainfall and so on. Is that clear? Right? So this is very clear that this is the way science should go. But by the way, it needs you to measure the well water in a bore well. How do you do that? How do you measure the level of water in a bore well? It's not easy. And it needs a very special guy. Okay, it's not easy. You have to open the bore, so if the hand pump which is put, right, how do you measure every month? Or say it is open with a lid on top. You open it and drop what do you drop? How do you know it doesn't touch? So you see that, so a lot of these errors may actually be called measurement. Okay, so remember that measurement of a scientific object or data is itself technology. So science and technology are embraced in a very intimate loop, or whatever. So you have to remember that. By the way, so does it always have to be physical science? No. Even in social science, for example, in this graph, each plus is a village. Okay, and on the x-axis is the number of children, right? And on the y-axis is the number of children as a fraction. So these are all villages in Shahpur Taluka, which is just adjoining us. Shahpur Taluka is a taluka of Hari district, right? And each of these is one village in Hari district. Okay? So if what you see, as literacy improves, the number of children in the village starts dropping. So the fertility or the population growth rate of the village is actually going down. So you see that as literacy improves, this is actual data. And you see that as literacy improves, the number of children in the fertility, or the population growth rate actually goes down, right? So, is that yeah?
Or it may also happen that
the other way around. It may be the other way around, right? Or it may be a third factor.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, yeah.
Or I thought once they get literate, they may move on to cities and so on. So the effective population itself decreases, and so the number of people who are born every year.
No, but if the literate people go out, right? So it's not clear whether children will be answered. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm just saying that. So maybe the theory needs to be updated. Okay, cause and effect. So there's already illustration that you make a theory, then you test it, and then you change it and so on. All I'm trying to say is that, so this does show you that that social science also has very reasonable theories. Correct? It has more complicated events or phenomena, but it has also very reasonable theories. Right? So it's very interesting that this is true. Right? So this is science. Now I explained how science works. Now what about engineering? Well, really speaking, engineering is about changing reality. While science is about describing reality, engineering is about changing it. That I want to change it. Right? I'm not happy that my borewell goes down 3 feet or 5 meters in May. I want to change it. Or I don't want, for example, that so is that clear? So it is about what should I do something and so on. So when I say I want to change it, what do I want to change it to? Right? So immediately society comes. Who is telling you what is it that we want? It is society that says that I want my, or the householder, or the villager, or someone else. Right? Is that clear? So engineering is about interpreting what is the desired objective or state and trying to maneuver things so that it goes there, right? So the society goes there. Is that clear? So there is an intervention, an agency, like a driver. You want to go there. Who tells you what it is? Society tells you what should be done, right? Or my contractor, or my whatever, my MLA, or some corporate. There is some member of society who is actually telling you that this is where I want to be. Can you help me go there? Okay, so science is about description and engineering about change, intervention, right? So remember that if you are a good engineer, you must know science good enough to change reality. It's not enough to describe reality. Okay, so what is the engineering loop? We've seen the science loop. The engineering loop as follows: identify a problem and a stakeholder, because ultimately you want to deliver value. Who are you going to deliver value to? So that's the stakeholder. So it may be it may be a owner, house owner, it may be society at large, the city, and CGM, or it may be a Gram Panchayat, whatever, company, Hindustan Lever, so on, right? Analyze the problem and separate into elements. So this frequently happens because once you ask society to pose problem, they are not going to say in the variables that you understand. So, for example, I improve the public transport in Bombay. That is a problem which if you become a consultant later on, you are called to, and the type of public transport in Bombay is very bad. Improve it. Now immediately that's a problem. How do you improve? So do I make the buses run faster? Should I put more buses? Should the staff be more courteous? Should the fares be lower? Or should the roads improve? So you understand that it becomes more complicated, right? Because so it's not that you understand. Is that clear? That once society poses problems, it is going to pose it in its language, right? And you have to transformalize that problem into sub-problems which are disciplinary. Right? This is an economics problem, this is an action, right? So you have to solve the problem that it needs, then you synthesize it and give it back to stakeholders and generate value. Correct? So you do all of this. So basically, just to summarize, science I described by name of change and delivering change in a way, and modeling and design are concrete. Modeling society, and designing is essentially interdisciplinary. So you have to combine the many, you have to understand. So, is that clear?
Science also engineering part. Science also by helping you describe the problems.
Exactly. Yeah. So science. So these are all scientific areas, disciplinary scientific areas. So the true engineer takes society, identifies problem, analyzes it, and then breaks them into some problem. Then she synthesizes the solution and then she deploys it, and thereby generates value. Right? So this is the engineering. Okay, so this part is the modeling part of which it takes into society. Then the design part of which is related to the composition and decomposition. Decombining and recombining. Right, so hold on. So what is society? Right? So when we say society for the, how do I understand society? So am I serving the right person? Right? So what is really society about? So here is a very forked structure of society. Okay, so the structure, this is where you are, or this is the community, the household. Right? Ultimately, all problems must benefit the individual and his or her immediate, my children, my family, and so on. So I will call this the household, right? And the household typically wants, what is it when she wants, some food, shelter, some environmental services like drinking water, and energy, and so on, right? And there are other people who claim to help it in procuring them, right? So, for example, what are roads for? Well, roads are for so that I can go to the market and buy stuff, buy vegetables. Or road is but for that I need money, so road is for me to go to somewhere and work. So the basic demands are of a household and they are largely for environmental services. That is your basic, accountability. Is that clear? So we are accountable primarily to the person or the household. We are not accountable to the company or the state. Our accountability, as I said, is actually to the household well-being of the individual. Correct? Right? And we see all others as, and perhaps civil society. Right? So what is the market? Market is essentially, so these are all assistants. Market, state and civil society are assistants to enable you to function. Correct? So what does the state do? State tells you well, so state is, so by the way, what is the market? How do you define the market? How do you define civil society? Or, these are pop definitions. So you may take 3 courses to define the state and 5 to define the market and so on. But let us try to do it in 2 minutes. So what is the market? Market is about production of commodities. So what is a commodity? And I have, what is it called? This is a commodity. Why? So I don't know who's manufacturing it. I know it has a price. Then and I can go there where the production and who produces it are separate. Right? But the rakhi that you buy, which girls tie to boys or whatever, that is not a commodity. Because you know who is tied it. So it is a cultural product. Right? So it's a civil society product. So I would say that a rakhi, homemade rakhi, is a civil society product. Or a Ganpati, I bought it from page, Shadow Ka Ganpati. Right? So it is borderline between commodity and civil society production. While the market is essentially the exchange of commodities against prices, save money and money using money. What is the state? What is the state? State primary role of state is that it is the official source of violence. Right? It is no other person are allowed to be violent. The state can punish you and threaten you that if you don't do something, you will get punished. So, the state is to enable social action. So, you should together be harmonious. Because if you are not harmonious, I am going to punish you. Correct? So, the state, primary role of the state is to enable collective action. And municipal corporation, you pay taxes and municipal corporation, runs a bus service for you. Right? And if you don't, if you board a bus and don't pay a ticket, you will be fined or you may be put in jail. Right? So, the role of the state is to enable collective action. Okay, and what is civil society? Civil society, anything which is beyond, which is not economic transaction or state administration. For example, I visit my parents in Nashik, or I have some caste. So not all civil society is good by that. The church was a big civil society agent which was lording and taxing people. Otherwise, God will punish you. Correct? And we have this Khap Panchayat, they are all civil society agents. The Khap Panchayat is neither state nor market. It is an agreement between us that these Khap Panchayats are have authority. Correct? So, there are many civil society agencies. The university is the biggest civil society agency. Right? We are not the market, we are not the state. Is that clear? Yeah?
These are the only 4 items.
Broadly. These are, but they are not.
Because whatever doesn't belong to state and market is automatically coming from.
No, I am just trying to. You see, the transactions between community and civil society are of kinship, identity, music, art, magic, anthropological. Right? So, for example, like bamboo. You are trying to convert what her PhD is trying to convert, either bamboo is right now a civil society product, right? And you want to try to make it into a market product, right? Or maybe help get the state to promote bamboo. So her PhD look at bamboo houses, and they are really good, but they are right now as a fashion statement or whatever statement. Right? They are not really in the market. So perhaps I can use the state to enable people to buy bamboo. Right? So all these, the pop definition of your PhD. Okay, it's maybe more than that, but you understand what I'm saying. So so this typology is important in understanding what is your project. Right? What is your project? Is it to do with, so we will come to this later. But this understanding of the state, and remember, the point that I make is that your allegiance is to the household. You must take care that it should be equitable, it should be sustainable, and it should be what the third field is Sitara way. Well, whatever. So there are 3 or 4 basic. Our allegiance is for the benefit of you, me, and everyone. Right? These are all constructs. They are middlemen between our transaction with the environment. Okay. Is that clear? Okay. Yeah, so there are, of course, then besides it, there is something more. You're right. So in the middle, I have shown you assets. So there is a state of the system. So for example, I build a bridge. So bridge was built by the state, but it is an asset of society. Or maybe an institution like a school or a university is an asset. It's an intangible, it's an asset. So some things have been brought together and given some identity. Like maybe physical identity or an intangible. So these are assets. Right? So you will see that. So these, so we build assets. Right? And assets it's a history of the society. Right? Like Taj Mahal. It is an asset. Right? Or Harvard University from whenever, or Cambridge. 1497 was when it started, like Cambridge University, Oxford University, right? So those are assets of that society. Is that clear? So this is how a society functions, right? And there is of course competition. So what are the economists trying to do? They're trying to say that there are no such interactions at all. Everything can be, everything can be managed by the market, right? Correct? Everything is actually rational economic. The rational person, man or woman, actually, encompasses every other role. While the state a strong state will say, no, I will regulate the market. Right? And who said that everything is really the state. Right? While Gandhi said, no, everything really is civil society. Right? So these are different people in every sector. So all this, of course, is there are the individuals here. After all, there is, if you go back, what is the state? The state is also composed individually. So state is, in the daytime, he or she works as an agent of the state. Off office hours, he or she is a person of the company. Right? So don't think that, so there is also an individual split between what she does to make a living and what she does, so the consumption side and the production side. Right? So I will say that, so there is a web of connections. So the king, during the day may be a king, but come evening, he wants to listen to a musician. The musician, so that's the consumption, the production. The music is civil society. Farmer is and so on. You understand? So the whole economy, the structure of society is really conducted by agents, right? Who are working, as a working producer role and a consumer. So these are 2 roles. Then again, so when you are designing your project, keep in mind that these are the roles. So we come back. So we say that it is this is I mean so we know that the engineer essentially must understand all of this. Right? So is it clear now? The engineer, what is society, who am I serving, what should I, and so on. And obviously R&D usually happens here in the scientific part. Right? So remember that engineering is useless unless you have a stakeholder. So when you are working on a problem, Sitara students know that who are you presenting for? Who are you working for? Who do I present my output? He or she should be happy to see my output. Correct? So while a scientist will say, I'm working for so that I get a paper in Nature journal. Right? Or I want to put a man on the moon or Mars or wherever. That will be happy? Well, I don't know if will be happy, but maybe civilization. So they are different. Okay. So now we have the engineer, we have understood. So who is really working? By the way, is it going too fast? So this talk is there on the left, so you can review it. And I think they are doing a video recording, and it should probably be on YouTube, right? So you can see it there as well. Fine, and you can of course write to me and ask questions. So now, we have seen this, but you said, where is the company? We have, where the company is of course agent of the market. Right? So what does the company do? So company has, if you go back, this is the engineer and this society, and is trying to satisfy some needs. Correct? Look at the company. What does it do? It has separate departments. It has a marketing department which understands society measure, and then you have a HR department which will bring the engineers and the advertising executive. Then it will have a design department who will do the design. So it believes in division of labor, right? And then bring up the right. So now, so if you look at that employment placement data, we are looking at what are our aspirations. Our aspirations are to come here. These are all individuals. I want to be a salesperson. I want to do finance. I want to do HR. I want to do this. Right? So the engineer as an individual has been erased, and all of those blocks have been made into departments of a company, right? Which are populated by individuals. Is that clear? So that transfer, that cycle which you saw, has been by the division of labor has been broken up into so many small parts. Correct? And so that is called professionalization. Right? So then what areas will the company invest in? It will invest in what is most profitable for it. Correct? So it will invest in India, IT, pharma, telecom, and so on. It will not invest in drinking water, solid waste, and so on. Because per rupee of investment, the returns are not commensurate. Right? So then the obvious question: if there is indeed a problem, if there is indeed drinking water is a problem, solid waste is a problem, why are our engineers not starting companies? It brings us back to the placement problem. Right? That per rupee invested, solid waste and drinking water are not giving enough returns, but IT is. So is it now clear that we must, as engineering departments or as Tata, IIT, MIT, we must develop protocols which will deliver the same value as in IT and pharma, and it will deliver value in solid waste and drinking water. Is that clear? So it is our job is clear. So essentially, yeah. So another model is really the entrepreneur who will do this part, identify problems, synthesize it, and use. So all of you are supposed to be interdisciplinary engineers. It means that you should understand all of these black boxes. Yeah, I know. If I want some filter, well, remember it has to be cheap. It has to have these properties. I will measure what is there, and I'll go to the household, find out what are the practices, develop the technical problem, and come to chemical engineering department or environmental, get the solution. Right. So the role of the development professional is to be this. Right? Is to be this for drinking water and solid waste. Okay, not for Flipkart or whatever. Right? So we are really looking for entrepreneurs in the drinking water and solid waste sector. Right? Yeah, so these are that's a very tough, you can see that it's a big, tough agenda. Not easy to prepare people for this. Right? So, they are very interesting. But I must say that looking at the training that IIT gave us, that our engineering colleges must teach them. For example, 95% of IIT students when they graduate would not have seen a factory or a drinking water well, or would not have visited the office of the chief engineer of a city. Right? Are these not the essential stakeholders? They are. Unfortunately, we have not. So we have to adapt, modify. Right? But of course, I am happy to tell you that all Sitara graduates would have seen all sorts of factories. Right? They would have seen the informal sector, the formal sector, pipes, biscuits, poha, toys, Ganesh Murti, and so on. Is that not right? Yes.
So, but when you are as a 12th class student, when you are taking a particular course, for instance, you take a call whether you want to go for an IT sector, whether you want to go for a civil sector, or whether you want to build a community and go for a vocational course. So, in that scenario, your family and your personal attributes, they do play a part. At that point, nobody is an engineer, nobody is it's just a science, a commerce, or a art background. So,
so if you look, there is a long talk there on YouTube, which is called the Elite University. So, there on YouTube, you can have a look. that will tell you that what are the, so a lot depends on the incentives. So for example, if you are doing that, if you are joining IIT, then why IIT is taking physics, chemistry, maths in a multiple choice question format? No need. If you want to join IIT, then might as well test good IIT and or finance question at the entry point. Correct? So there is really a masking going on. That there is really, you understand, that we are actually, it's a conduit to some other thing, but it has been arranged as something else. Right? It is arranged, so it is really confusion. Right? So that's what I am saying, that our conduct of science in India is problematic. Because under the name of science, the top scientists and technologists are actually doing something else. And that is part of the development problem. Okay, that is exactly that the nature of incentives and the disguising of what is the nature of science is actually confounding people. And that is a part of the misguided.
What I want to add is, like, when a particular student is selecting a particular stream, it is as per his interest or his whatever guidance he's got from his background or
Correct.
family.
Correct.
So at that stage, he doesn't know what is
Correct.
his future going to be.
Correct.
So at that stage, if he's given a vertical specialization, say for an IT or a civil sector, that is ideal for him. Or else, at that point, if he's got direction and he wants to go for a particular, supposing say, if he wants to go for fine arts or for fashion design, then he can choose his vocation.
Correct.
So at that point is like what I think is best suited for him is a vertical specialization rather than give him multidisciplinary things where he just turns out to be jack of all trades and master of none. So I feel that a vertical specialization sector is a better education system rather than.
So that depends on companies. For example, in drinking water. So that exactly what you're saying is what I'm not saying. So I'm saying that if you want to understand society, and if you want industries to be working in the drinking water sector, a vertical specialization in chemical engineering will only prepare you for existing industries of chemical engineering. So I will just come to the next slide. Right? So anyway, this is the slide.
So just to add on, sir, I'm not talking in terms of entrepreneurial development of an individual. I'm talking about a company which has got several industrial sectors.
Correct.
Chemical, civil. So in that scenario, you want a chemical engineer who is very good in his job.
Correct.
You don't want somebody who is good in chemical also.
Correct. But so that's what I'm saying, that if you look at the industry model, it works on a division of labor, right? And so what you're saying is that for a student, he or she should target to be a specialist chemical engineer or specialist HR, because then the company is generating value and therefore I get paid, right? But the problem is that company will choose to generate value in certain sectors, right? And it may ignore certain sectors. And why would it ignore certain sectors? Because there is not going to be a big Veolia from France is not going to come here, or it may come here, it will be very expensive. The point is that there has to be, you have to start small. Industries, company in drinking water cannot come here and I want an HR, I want a social analyst, I want a groundwater specialist. It is not going to happen that way. It has to be started at the beginning. So if you want to start the drinking water sector at the beginning, then the initial people, that is how jobs are formed. So the real, that's what I am saying, that the entrepreneur must start like this.
Sir, just to add on, the entrepreneur need not be an engineer.
No,
the normal guy who's spent his life in the village and tell it to an engineer, that's also a problem.
Correct. But so he must be able to comprehend the black boxes called civil engineering, economics, and so on. He or she must be able to understand. This is a problem which a civil engineer will know. And let me, consult his services. Correct? So we must prepare people who can understand the black boxes, but interface with society, be able to decompose problems, be able to synthesize and deliver. So I think exactly what I'm saying is that if you look at the disciplinary training is going to benefit existing companies. Interdisciplinary training is what is needed in the sector which you don't have. Is that clear? Okay. So I'm just saying that, this. So if you look at an article in Current Science, it's a journal of the Indian Academy of Sciences, I have written it. You will see that the mismatch between what is our training, and that is essentially because we are training. The whole engineering system is really support. The university is supposed to prepare employees. It is not supposed to parse, understand what the people want. It assumes that the companies and the government understand what people want, and that there are existing setups by which those become, the division of labor has happened, and there are job descriptions called executive engineers and so on, and that is where you should come. Is that clear? And that the university has to train for those job descriptions. Is that clear? Right? Yeah.
How do we address the problem that as far as engineering education goes, most students are driven by choices, considerations other than interest or even aptitude for that matter?
Correct. So I think that India has two problems. So this first problem of so the first problem of over specialization is common to us and developing countries. But our problem of conducting science and does science actually rerouting people is a deeper problem. It is really to do with culture, society, colonial past, and so on. So we have a two-level problem. Not only do we have over specialization, which in training, which prevents thinking of the sector from evolving. But the thing is that the top, there is also mislabeling. That if you ask 12th standard pass, you say, I want to go right away, I want to serve the country, do science and technology is the future. But 85 or 70% don't do science. Right? So it's a complex situation. And if you look at, for example, Kishore, and moreover, we are testing science by some multiple choice exam. And so you read, what is a scientific question which would answer the cooking energy problem? A simple question. Identify the best chula in the village. Now that every 12th standard kid should be able to conduct an experiment to it. If our curriculum contains identify the best chula in the village. Now you will suddenly say, oh well, large household, small household, where do they become? So most science is actually that way. Most science is not sin theta plus cos 3 theta plus pi equal to 5 by 60. It is not that. Most science is actually, does not have a unique answer. And it depends on able to formulate the question, develop a methodology, and then come to an answer. Right? And no multiple choice question can test how good a person is in discovering what is the best chula in the village. Right? So there is a methodological problem in our definition science.
So yeah. The 4-year course for graduation program is what happens generally is the students are exposed to the industrial problems. What you have been mentioning are the rural problems. So
or urban. This is
but not urban. In the last few years, since the country has started awakening and addressing these issues, there have been several instances of urban revolutions and urban innovations. But the rural problems are the ones which are not been addressed, as you've been mentioning. So
these are we will talk about
several instances, like some mobile phones and whatever apps which are coming up. Everybody develops an app.
So I mean, for example,
whatever problems you and me are facing are being developed in the urban areas.
Yeah, well,
those are infrastructure problems so that we community members can only help out each other. But we cannot solve the mass transport problem as a whole.
Hello, listen. So I think that what are urban problems? Perhaps I will come to that. So I think that we need to be far more perspicuous or far more vigilant about what are urban problems. What really belongs to us as an individual and as a community. Right? So perhaps what is inevitable and what is evitable. That exactly is the question which science must answer. Okay, so what we perceive as a scientific question and what we perceive as it's a matter of corruption. Okay, this is exactly the point that I want to stress. And which I will
complete. Just one thing I want to add. We have an industrial training program for all the 4 years that is there for BTech students, that's an engineering student. For a industrial application, industrial problem set. In a similar term, like if you want to address the rural problems also, you can send the engineers, civil engineer, chemical engineer for a field program in rural areas.
I think that let us complete this because right now we will come to it. So these are all questions of curriculum design and so on. Right? So we will. Anyway, so here is the curriculum design. So I am exactly saying that. So we have this is the university. Right? But what I claim, what we need are new job definitions. Right? We need jobs like this, energy expert for the district, or drinking water consultant, right? District drought prevention center. These are the types of things. District public transport manager, and so on. Right? So we would like the university to give the definitions of these jobs, give rigor to it, and align them or match them up with research. Right? Exactly. So my claim is that old claim that these new job profiles will actually generate value. Okay? So my claim that this is the big curriculum design problem. How do I find job profiles which deliver value? And there has to be some people to receive this value. So what am I saying? That you pick a stakeholder, deliver value, take a part of the value as profits and as your earning. Correct? That is what I am saying. So for example, now 2014 or late 2015 is going to be a drought year in Maharashtra. Right? There are, for example, typical district, they'll have about 250, 200 villages to which tanker water has to be provided. So it's a great logistics problem. Right? So that's what I mean by, taluka, whatever, I am not listening, taluka level planner. Correct? But for example, has somebody gone to the taluka office and said, I am going to do this, and I'll show you, I say 1 lakh, you give me 20,000. Are we prepared? Is our training like that? Has our faculty member done it? That's the question. Is the institute like it? Is it publishable? Right? So these are the questions which you are faced with. Right? Is that clear? Does it make it clear? What I'm saying? So research which is accessible by society will generate value. Yeah, good. So now that finishes part 2. So part 3, I will just give a quick example of, we have learned all of this. So let us look at a typical example, which is my research with this. Okay, is rural drinking water. Okay, everything for me is either well or whatever. So if you look at, so this is now, how would we develop a curriculum, for example, in rural drinking water? Okay, right? So now I am saying that I want to pick you people, I am going to make you, I am going to show you that you can make 5 lakh or 6 lakh or 7 lakh rupees a year in rural drinking water. So that is my assignment. Right? So if you follow what I am saying, you will make it. I am just kidding. But the thing is actually no. I mean, that's the exploration. That is the real research agenda. That how do I make, what is the training that I can give you so that you make 7 lakh rupees a month and work in the rural drinking water sector. Okay, so that's the agenda. So what would you expect? What should the training be? So it will be, understand these things. And much of rural India is from groundwater. Right? Help for this. Then water comes from borewell, they handle. So what does government of India call a village safe? Is there are 40 liters per person per day. What is 40 liters? 2 buckets. And per person 2 buckets. But now, of course, if you have a cow, then another 40 liters added, thankfully. Okay. Otherwise, it was if you have 5 buffaloes, then still that is the norm. Okay. So now, in the last 5-10 years, they have added the number of livestock into the definition of drinking water secure. Right? By the way, of course, urban norm is 150 and Bombay is 200. And I think Chennai is 90. Okay, so these are the. So rural people, for some reason, need less water. Okay, but let us go on. Right, and this is a frequent situation. Right, the frequent situation is that the drinking water well is dry. Correct? Yeah, so when that happens, of course, we will have to research difficult situation and tankers have to be used, and and of course, it leads to migration, poor incomes, and women have to spend. Cannot grow up their kids well. You walk for 3 hours every day or back and forth. Obviously, you're not growing up your kids well, right? So it is all interconnected. It's an adverse impact. So now, if you look at the, so by the way, so please, the part 1, 2. This is a very important part because this is how actually what's it called, the proof of the pudding. This is the actual hard analysis that you must do. So you will see that I am using various economic data and technological data and so on. I am actually going to do something which uses all of these and comes out with a answer. Okay, so you have, so this is Thane district, this is my pet district, I have it. So it has, it has got nations and it is partly tribal, partly gay and huge development agenda. So I know how many people are there and so on. So this is my answer. Then here is the first one. So these are the bad villages. Okay? These are the bad villages. Now what I do is, I compute in the bad villages what is the fraction of tribal people and what is the fraction of tribal people in the district. So if drinking water is not related to tribality, the number should be equal. Correct? But now what you see that in Jawar, the tribality is 97, Tanker is 97, 91, 90. So Jawar Mukhar are fine. Most of it fine. If you look at Murbad, tribal is only 24, but in Tanker village is 74. Okay? Then in Shahpur, 35 and 62. So what do you say? Well, now there seems to be a problem. There seems to be a social problem. Correct? So this is how you drill down. But now if I look at the average elevation of villages, right, in Murbad and Shahpur, I see that Murbad it is the same. But in Shahpur, the Tanker width is much higher. Correct? So what does it tell me? That perhaps Shahpur is more an engineering problem and Murbad is perhaps more a social problem. Right? So my engineers should perhaps go to Shahpur. My social scientists should perhaps go to Murbad. Is that clear? Yeah, so just drilling down on data. And then we can do some more analysis, which I will not do. So I mean we looked at a similar district. So we said now there are those villages, the engineering. So we said, so this Karjat Taluka is an engineering problem, right? So let us try to solve that engineering problem. So what we, after much thinking, what we decided is to have a large rural regional scheme, right? A bulk water grid, right? So in bulk water, like electricity grid, right? So let's have a bulk water grid across half of the taluka. Correct? So I say there is a lot of concentration in these tribal high areas. So let me design a bulk water grid. Okay, so based on this analysis, so I looked at Shahpur and said let's design it. So what did I do? So I said that let us have a feasibility study which will use exactly all the government norms. So I want to examine whether it is doable or not. Is a rural water supply grid feasible in the government norms, using government machinery, using government costing and so on, using government policy? I want to examine that. Okay, so that's what we did, using everything. And then, right, so I'm not going to go into so essentially what is a water supply scheme? That there is a source from the river or something, and then there are the big tank for the main balancing, mass balancing in the void. There are local village cluster tanks and so on, and then from these tanks it goes to the homes. That is how the water supply scheme looks like. Is that clear? So the source, put it up on big, then by gravity it flows into the ESRs, and by gravity it flows down. So the energy part is the first part, lifting, and then the optimization part is from the NBR to the ESR, and the ESR to people is the service part. What time do you want water? Okay, so first the energy part, the optimization part, and the service part. Is that clear? Right? Is that clear? So this is how it works. So exactly as I said that you need to assess need, because a lot of villages lie. They have a problem and you have to assess. So it reduces cost. So village assessment is the first thing. Is it really true? Examine all the villages, all the wells in the village. In May, in month of May, what happened? Do all that stuff. Correct? And then you do the optimization. Then do ground truthing with the stakeholder. Give it back to the field. Give it back to local MLA, local Gram Panchayats, and so on. And then do document and display. Right? So this is all the process that we take. Actual surveys, right? And possible sources and so on. And this is the source facility. Taze River. So it is the discharge of a small tidal plant. Okay, so it's perennial. So there is a headwaters of Andhra reservoir in Pune district. Pune district पानी के नीचे आता है. Okay, so that reservoir basically it had 1000 mld as a discharge. So out of which we wanted some 10 or 20 ml. Okay, so 2.5. So these are the villages, possible habitation and their elevation, population, growth rate. Then finally this is the outcome. The bulk water grid designed for about 70 kilometers of pipeline, with 17 DSRs. So these are, these are all the individual. So it's a large graph network. Villages, and we selected the pipeline will travel alongside roads. So land acquisition cost is a big problem. So let us make it go along roads. Okay, so exactly how PWD would do it. So these are all, and finally the outcome. This is the 17 cost, the investment, right, and so on, and net investment. So we gave it exactly, showed the it. Okay, so by the way, this exercise we have done it again for Mukhada, and the Mukhada MLA, newly elected member of Parliament, he is pushing it. ये IIT वालों ने कुछ तो बोला है कि गलत है कि बताओ. So what they is now taking to the collector. So either पाप दिखाने तो श्राद्ध करना. Either you say it is wrong or you do it. Right? So now the second step, of course, I am going to say that is 57 crores है ना. So feasibility study का, give me 1%, 57 lakhs. I showed you that this is feasible, no? So from your collector's development fund, give me 1% or give me 0.5%, give me 0.1%. If I do that, I have established a business model. Correct? I have established that I can make money giving you drinking water. Right? So it's a very complex. Good. Yeah, so I mean, what are the outcomes? Obviously, for Gazal, giving a money, so I've given it to the local MLA. For Sitara or IIT, this is good training for us. This is defining what the university can actually do. Right? Because we use, you can get trained in analyzing such systems. So would not the reality be different? Would not, when you read a paper, you say, this is not true. I don't believe this. Right? Would not a lot more of people you say, no, this analysis is wrong because I can analyze it differently. 6 months, 3 students to 3. Okay, 3 BTech projects, MTech projects. Student can do this. So I am saying that these are routine and this can be routinely taught. So our problems are routine. They don't need rock stars. Okay? It can be done by you and me. And the bottom 80%. You don't need, top 1% IITs to do it. It can be taught in Aurangabad Engineering College. Okay, but the politics is important. Will an output from Aurangabad Engineering be believed? That's it, right? But if an IITian does it, they must be nice. So the politics is also very important. And that is the reason why elite universities must do this. Because Aurangabad, we are in a situation where correct science coming from Aurangabad will not be believed. So we are in that tough situation. Okay. Yeah, so of course, it brings you the linkages. So I have now showed you how the university can actually function as a great mediator or a great transparentizer in the development agenda. Right? I have shown that. Correct? So now, let's now come to the typology. So it is always when I have given you what is the meaning of society. So we have in the last 5 minutes of this. Is it okay? Is that okay? So when you think of an intervention, the typology of the intervention, because that's where you want to make money, right? Or deliver value. I don't want to. I personally, I would like if my my mother or my grandmother said, "Oh, you've done really well," I feel like a king. Okay? So that's my value. Right? So you may have your own values or whatever, but so you must know what is so. So one thing is that the state is usually an important element in the loop. Okay? So if you think that everything can be done by innovation and so on and so forth, remember that the state is sometimes an important agent who has been massaged, managed, changed, made transparent, subvert, uplifted or whatever. Okay, so you remember that. So I think you should have a theory of dealing with the state, or your theory of innovation or intervention must have the state in its calculus, right? So it must be there. So for example, so you should know, for example, that who values it, who will pay the benefits, who this is important. Yeah.
So what exactly is psychology?
Types of intervention. I am just going to do it. Okay, so for example, a water filter is a very simple thing. It has to be bought by household. It is apt for the innovation that we read or in Tech Fest or E-Cell or jo bhi hai. These are the typical innovations. That household, small intervention, chota mein I will make it, small intervention, I will sell it, make money. Right? But if you go to water meter, now it's not clear why would a household buy a water meter unless the state is charging by volume. If the state which is delivering water to you is charging by volume, only then is a meter a good gadget. Otherwise it is not. Do you understand? So a simple difference between a household object, water filter and water meter are very different. Correct? Right? So similarly, a water supply scheme which I designed is very different from a groundwater model. I do research in groundwater. It is very different. Right? And so all of these should make money. In a developed society, all of these products make money. Okay? Is that clear? So this typology should be clear. So these are, I think, areas of future. So small and medium enterprises, informal enterprises, city and district administration, core sectors, energy, water, and so on. Right? And these are where there is formalization of the problem. Like I formalize. Yeah, otherwise you will get 70 villages, list banao, gaon ki list here, 70 villages without tanker, without water. But how I formalize it? I am like, so divide the problem, formalize it, make it. So, and that is how new jobs will be created. Our society needs new jobs and new job definitions. We have exhausted our old job definition. There is no more need for a new executive engineer. Okay, so and the government not going to hire, companies are not going to hire. Right? So these are, for example, here the mystery wala was running on solar thermal. These are actually products. So I think that you have to understand irrigation. Irrigation, the state is a big player. That tradition would be added on. So all of these are right for formalization and professionalization. So this is the last part. So I think this is where the philosophical part comes in. Really said, note that there are really two types of knowledge. Right? The scientific knowledge and the so-called practice-oriented knowledge. They're most like an architect or an engineer. A lot of knowledge is in the feedback loop that I designed everything quite well. But so all of, for example, your KPM or consulting McKinsey or PricewaterhouseCoopers, what do they have? They have an internal knowledge that they have done it many times. Right? So there is a state of the system internal to them. Like for example, a potter, like something didn't work, something worked. Right? So she is actually adapting to what the so science, much of the knowledge is actually practical. Is actually by doing, actually by designing, actually of the form that engineering loop that I showed. Right? So if you do that loop 2-3 times, you have professionalized it. Then you have professional. Okay, then you can. So the university's goal is to help the student do it 2-3 times, so that practical knowledge will be observed and gained, and so that the student now can go out and deliver value. So that is really. So really, I mean, so empirical models, empirical system, data gathering. Right? So ideally, if you come to IIT, you should ask, so what is the data that this department has? Has it studied the railways, Indian railways? Ideally you would expect that in IIT or India, they would have some data about the past. That there are some facts. You are talking about Indian railways. They know from 1970s, 50 में क्या था, meter gauge, broad gauge, conversion कब हुआ, how was Banaras station designed, and so on. So that when a new station, Navi Mumbai station has to be designed, I am there, and I will train you to design new stations cheaply. You don't have to go to World Bank or PhD or whatever. Correct? So it is very important to have empirical systems within the university. That pick some areas. You don't need to pick, but that the notion of empiricism of science that I observe and I explore and I have a theory of how it works, and that's very important. Not all is by the Schrodinger equation. Schrodinger doesn't need empiricism, and we are confusing most of science as of the form of Schrodinger equation. Not that. Most of science like this is learned through like working on bamboo. There is no theorem to or no theory to this work. Right, so these are the two. So if you look, what is the, I started with the loop of science. It said that there is nature, you observe, you form a theory, you adapt the theory, try and describe it again, and so on. But here we have society, you observe, you adapt, the agent has changed, and then you present. Then you again observe error, and so on. So these two groups are actually very similar. Right, so I think that the practice, so really the science is, so what out of this the output is F equal to ma, the law. Well, the output here is nothing. It is an abstract understanding of how railway station must be designed. Correct? So, like of the design. So I think that practice, it is the methodology which is important, not the output of it. Right? So for example, when you are doing Srikhand at home, you used to make it. How many of you know how Srikhand is made? There is a Srikhand yantra which are doing this and outcome Srikhand. So some people like the Srikhand, but some people like the churning. Right? So the churning is as important as the output. Okay, so that is the point. So finally, really speaking, if you look at true science, right, if you look at Bombay or the philosophy of science, they always say that science is not religion. They are not religion. Right? So most scientists, if you look, have faced the problem of Galileo or him. They have answered it. Why did my child die? Right? If scientists don't answer the question, religious people are going to answer it. Politicians are going to answer it. That you voted for that party, therefore your child died. Right? Or religious, tumne paap kiya hai, punya kiya hai, and so on. So this is the primary question. Why did my child die? Why am I poor? Right? If science has to step up to the table and answer these questions. Correct? Only if that we have the method to answer these questions. Right? So because she drank bad water. Right? This is how I would answer. And why is the water bad? Because your groundwater got polluted. Why was it not tested? Because there were too few trained, or we don't know how to test it, or there is no business model. Right? So I think that this analysis of why did my child, there is not one answer. If you are a groundwater guy, you will say everything is a groundwater problem. But actually, for a child to die, all things have gone wrong. Groundwater has been bad, but the ambulance did not go on time. Right? So luckily for us, that a groundwater person will solve the problem, and a transportation manager will solve the problem. A GPS device may, right? So it may, the answer may be this, because she didn't reach the hospital on time. Because I've got permanent traffic jam, right? The ambulance didn't have a GPS, also the city doesn't have a transport planner. Right? So you see that there are many answers. So I think that the methodology of science is really that I'm going to answer that question. Okay? The scientist must step up and say, I'm going to answer that. That is the primary, or the scientist engineer. Right? And I think that the ability to comprehend all of this in one institution, I think it is the university. Right? It is indeed the university, right? which can really step up to the table and say, I can comprehend, and I understand what is going on. Right? So it is really this university, and especially the elite, the Tata, MIT, and IIT, all great institutions, have come here, right? So they can serve society and support it, and seek support on a valid, not on being elite. That I am from MIT or I am from IIT, therefore I deserve support. No, they serve. They serve. Right? It is, in fact, the elite should provide thought leadership in the arts, in that the ability that I want to answer this question: why did my child die? Right? It is the job of the elite is to say that I want to answer. Maybe not now, maybe 10 years from now, I will answer it. Correct? So it is really our destiny. It is really symbolic of what society has. So when we go, we want a long trek, and I think I'll stop. Thank you. Any questions? Good thought. Yeah.
Most often when we talk about these problems, the scientists say that solving these problems require application knowledge that is already known. Not the intellectual satisfaction that is there, say, solving the equation. So how do we?
So that's what I said, like T1 and T2, that T1 type of knowledge, T2 type of knowledge. Our definition of knowledge itself has become only T1. Right? And therefore we employ McKinsey because they provide us T2 knowledge. Correct? But in principle, that why did my child die is a scientific question. Death is scientific. Right? It is measurable. It's a biological phenomenon. Right? I have died. Right? So the question is posed in scientific terms. I think that confusion of in India, the confusion what is the role of science and what is the role, because it frequently leads you to some other things, like an eye. And you come here doing anybody end up doing IT for Deutsch.
So I think we need to, I don't know if you're there for Moses talk.
No.
He was talking about to get to the problem for irrigation system. Jain irrigation, but not Jain. Jain is one expression of it. To get to the problem, we spent a year and a half figuring out what is the real problem. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that the complexity of the problem is perhaps much more intricate than supposedly solving a Schrodinger equation.
Exactly. So I think
asymmetry.
No. I think that if the initial part is done, then you get the disciplinary problem. Okay, then you get that I want to design an efficient water meter first, and then you get that electric coil has to move forward and backward this way, and that the measure has to be accurate. And then you come to, well, I need to know Biot-Savart's law very well. Then I need to know dielectrics and so on. So initially it has to come to that. So is that clear?
Perception.
That is our problem. That is exactly. That is what I am saying. That the perception, we have to get rid of it. And I think that the elite university has the wherewithal and has to discharge this particular duty. No, I didn't say that. Not in this study, but some other study.
Elevation of the height of the tower.
Yeah.
Again, related to that, why are these mistakes being made?
So that's a good point. So I think that if you look at the loop of science, T1 or T2, there is always whether I have performed or not, whether I have satisfied, whether I have delivered value. So the output is y, but the person wanted y prime. So y minus y prime is the error. Then you should be able to measure the error and adapt the parameters of the input, right? So measurement of where have I succeeded, so that is very important. And frequently all our Indian systems are based on good intentions. कि आप मुझे वोट दो, my intentions are मैं देख. But there is nothing like that. Because unless you observe them, because nobody is so great on first shot, because of good intentions and great knowledge, I will do it right the first time. Never. There has to be a y minus y with delta y, changing the delta y to delta x, modifying the input, observing it again, and so on. Okay, so that review, evaluate, monitor, assess, all of these are required. So the observation part, the calibration part is very important. Yeah.
So I think even when we aspire what is development, like as once mentioned, better buses or better railways, I think it may not actually be always true. Like for example, better places having better railway connectivity may actually be drained of natural.
Correct, absolutely. So you see, so if you look at my presentation, I have said that what does society want? An engineer, if a society wants quietness and no railway, and I want taller trees, so an engineer must deliver that. Engineer is a professional. The society has to make a choice about what it wants. Is that clear? That's a very important point. And in fact, I think that railways, but that has to be done after people are, because given our aspirational system, we cannot convince people that the taller trees are better than railways. Right? It will take some time, but one has to go. Yeah, but now what I'm saying that for me, the household is the primary. I have to convince the household that the state does not agree to your interest. Reject the state. Is that clear? So state and market and so on are constructs, are middlemen to serve you. They have to be rejected. And the only people who can reject it is civil society. And the university is a part of civil society. So civil society job is to advise the household about how the state is performing or how the market is performing.
So the model
Is that okay?
model might fail when you try to make it valuable. The whole thing, because there is a chance of error. Who will pay for the error? And who will find value? The society might find value, but they won't be able to reward you. So
yeah, good. So I think actually that's it. So you're right, but most of it is you are not really you not succeed every step. So there is certainty and an uncertainty, right? So if you are 90% right, then you are. For example, medical doctor. Asian Heart Hospital say 99% of our heart cases are successful, while some others say 96%. Right? So the value is typically amortized over the lifetime of the institution.
But who will reward them? Who will reward the efforts?
Who will reward? So
Because
that's what I'm saying. I have now constructed the job definition has to be so clever that the value, the generate value, and the agent should have the right to take a part of it. So I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm saying that the job definitions have to be very neat design and need a lot more scientific.
The other way also, I think one connection is that the other way to look at the market is not just the market, but also the allocator of resources.
And the agents and their job definitions.
So another way, allocation of resources which is misplaced. Because there is a certain seduction with a particular kind of market which gives you a certain return. Right. So that's also an error. If you look at society, what is required, market is providing an error.
Correct.
That's one way of also looking at it.
So, but I think more than that, the agent and how is he or she generating or the institution. It may be a McKinsey. How does she generate? How does McKinsey generate value? Why are people paying McKinsey? McKinsey comes up with a 50-page report. What is the value? Why is a report of McKinsey valued? Worth $5 million. So it is an inherent in that trust in their mechanisms, right? And the ability of the receiver to change her way of functioning so that that 5 million is recovered in the next 3 years. Right? So, but that McKinsey took 20 years to grow. it is like that. Yeah.
So, during the presentation, you brought out that solution which is found by the district. There is a problem, as you mentioned in the presentation, also regarding the bigger region of Maharashtra itself. Yeah. Within the same state, you have another region, Ratnagiri district, where you got surplus of water every year and you got a postal system also. Yeah. As part of your department, have you looked at a solution for finding some water?
So we are actually, because of absolute time, if you go down in this presentation, you will see what does Sitara work in rural drinking water. Right? And we are looking at right now Osmanabad in more closer. Kya ho raha hai exactly? Right? So I think we need to analyze that. Okay. I think my impression is that the medium size reservoirs, their management is a very key issue. So large reservoirs like Sohoni or something, they are forgetting, they have to put it size. But I think one should look at the medium size reservoirs and their management. That is my thing. I'm very
Yeah. Proper role of engineering institutes. How do you place management skills in that perspective? What is their role? How do we actually integrate the what is this? How do we create a synergetic effect? I mean, what is your take on that? There's a lot of management schools and most engineers aspire to be.
I think management schools should step out of the corporate role as the only role. And only role model, it may be the only role for the graduate. But as the only role in teaching, I don't think it is reasonable. I think there are a lot of other interesting roles which may help you become a better manager of corporations. So I think that even in the training part, the other models of delivering value is valuable to a. I think that all your case studies need not be corporation, profit making corporation. It may be actual collector or essentially you have to I think management primarily job definition. Okay, so and in general time. So I think that job definitions are fluid and they should be.
Further questions?
So I hope this talk will be there on YouTube or public, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I think we had a vigorous